Evening, everyone. Call the January 22nd, 2025 public information meeting to order at 7:18 p.m. Sort of roll call. Councillor Hurst.
Present.
Councillor Goyda.
Present.
Councillor Spoulos.
Present.
Councillor Bailey.
Present.
Start our moment of reflection. That concludes our moment of reflection. So if I should have confirmation of the agenda, please. Do you? It's here, so I'm reading it. I don't know if I need to do that.
We can, so that the January 22nd, 2025 public meeting regarding the budget is approved as circulated.
Can I get that? No, we're not approving this circulated. All
The
right.
agenda.
The agenda, yes.
Yeah.
Moved by Councillor Bailey, second by Councillor Hurst. All fair, carry. Okay. Sorry, he was here.
Yeah,
All
we're all
right.
good.
Is there any disclosure of conflict of interest or pecuniary interest? No, seeing none. All right. Purpose of this public meeting is to inform and provide the public with the opportunity to ask questions or to express the views with respect to the township's proposed 2025 budget. Councilors are here to observe and listen to your comments. However, they will not make any decisions this evening. Township requests that you notify by email Mary Hassan at mhassan@fusslunch.ca or by phone at 519-763-1226, extension 222. If you wish to be on record regarding this matter. Please note the meeting is video and audio recorded and all electronic meetings are uploaded to the municipality's YouTube page. By registering to participate in the meeting by electronic means, you are consenting to have your likeness and comments recorded and posted on YouTube. Format of this public meeting is as follows. Mary Hassan, Director of Finance, Treasurer, will present the proposed 2025 budget and any further relevant information. Following this, the public can obtain clarification, ask questions, express their views. Members of the public are permitted 10 minutes each to ask questions and express their views. This time limit is imposed to provide each member of the public an opportunity to speak. Staff will attempt to answer questions or respond to concerns this evening. If this is not possible, staff will follow up and obtain this information. Responses will be provided when this matter is brought forward and evaluated by council at the February 20th, 2025 council meeting. I'll now turn it over to Ms. Hassan for her presentation.
Good afternoon, council and the public. Thank you, Ms. Heater, for assisting with the slide deck. I'll just start off on the second slide. So as our mayor has indicated, tonight we will discuss the budget process, what do property taxes pay for in the township, how the budget has changed from 2024, the impacts of the proposed budget on taxpayers, what is included in the operating budget. We'll summarize the 2025 capital budget and long-term forecast. We'll provide some information regarding the township's discretionary and restricted reserves. Also, we'll discuss all the engagement opportunities that are currently in place and that have been in place regarding the 2025 budget. And then we'll end it off with some feedback from the public. So the main objectives are to educate and inform you about the township's finances and the 2025 budget, and to receive feedback that staff and council can consider before finalizing the budget in February. Again, we will hold questions until the end of the presentation. So as you can see on this slide, the budget process is a reiterative process. So it actually started in September through development by the senior leadership team. We had our user fees and charges public information meeting in October. We had an engage+lunch.ca survey for user fees that went from September to October. We presented our first draft of the capital budget to council in October. The operating budget was presented in November. We've had a survey regarding our budget from December 13th, and it closes on January 31st at 12 p.m. This is consistent with previous years. On January 15th, we presented the second draft of the capital and operating budget, and basically this draft incorporated council's direction and any new information that staff had from the previous drafts presented. January 22nd is where we are right now in the budget process, and that's through a public information meeting to obtain budget input. The goal is to adopt the budget on February 20th at our regular council meeting. Just to reiterate, the process does not end when the budget is adopted. The budget is our best estimate on the township's revenues and expenditures for the year. Costs change, new projects do arise, and projects may be delayed when better information is available. However, the budget process is necessary in order to set our property taxes to be collected every year. Next slide, please. So the property tax allocations, they are actually allocated to the township, the county of Wellington, and the boards of education. When you pay your taxes, the township receives a relatively small share of the taxes. And so this slide here provides what that allocation is on the dollar of the tax bill for the residential, farmland, commercial, and industrial property tax classes. Next slide, please. So this slide just discusses what our capital tax levy is versus operating tax levy and the total municipal tax levy. As you can see, the 75% allocated to the operating budget and the 25% allocated to the capital budget has remained consistent from previous years, from the 2024 approved budget. Next slide, please. So this slide discusses all of the services that the township provides. And it represents what you get for your tax dollars. As you know, the County of Wellington also provides separate services, and so those are obtained through the county's tax dollars that they raise. Next slide, please. So based on the 2025 returned assessment roll, each additional $57,000 of taxes levied results in a 1% tax rate increase for the township portion of taxes. This slide only explains how the tax levy has changed from 2024. The next slides will factor in growth in the township and the change in taxes for the median typical properties in the township. Next slide, please, Sarah. So the impacts of the proposed budget on the taxpayers, we do look at the assessment change that's determined by the Municipal Property Assessment Coordinator, Municipal Property Assessment Corporation. And we look at that for the median typical property to ensure that the tax levy change that we recommend through the budget process is reasonable. So unfortunately, the 2025 returned assessment roll continues to provide little to no assessment changes because of the province's continued postponement of the assessment update. We do have some new assessment growth, however, and that's approximately 1.67% or 46.9 million. And this relates to new construction and renovations. Unfortunately, the 2025 returned assessment roll included a reduction of approximately 10,200 of just township taxes. Again, there's a reduction for the County of Wellington and the school boards, but this related to the new aggregate extraction property class that was announced by the province in late 2024. So that's impacted our budget. Unfortunately, this provincial direction resulted in a township tax increase of 0.18% and $3 on the median typical single family home. And that's just the township portion of the tax increase. If there had not been any new assessment growth in the township, the proposed budget would have resulted in a township tax increase of 5.84% and $74 and a blended tax increase of 3.75% and $256 and on the median typical single family home. So the next slides will incorporate the assessment growth, which is resulting in a lower tax increase. So we'll provide this information for a single family home, a farmland property, a small retail commercial property, and the standard industrial property. As I previously stated, the budget is the first step, and then the next steps are county tax policy, which is adopted by county council. And the county's proposed budget is scheduled to be approved in January 2025. So this slide discusses the proposed township tax increase of 4.1% and only $52 on the median typical single-family home. The $52 represents a monthly increase of approximately $4. And then when we look at that blended, so when we look at incorporating the County of Wellington and the education taxes as well as the township taxes, the increase is a lower percentage, so it's only 3.42% and $234. And the reason it's $234 is because that incorporates the county, education, and township taxes. So the township portion again is just $52 of the increase, which is a really good budget year for us to have and to propose to council. So the next slide just discusses those dollar allocations that I was speaking to before. Of the $1, so of a $1 portion of the tax bill, the township receives only 19 cents, and the county receives 67 cents, and the school boards receive 14 cents, and that is for the median typical single family home. So this is just like a pie chart describing those allocations that I had previously described to the public. So this slide discusses the median typical farmland property. And again, that results in a 4.1% increase and a $14 increase just for the township taxes, with a monthly increase of approximately $1. So this is specific to a farmland property. So this pie chart, similar to the one that I showed for the residential property, it's just showing the township's smaller portion in comparison to the county and the education boards. This slide speaks to the small retail commercial property and the tax increase there, the township tax increase, as well as the blended tax increase. Again, it's only $74 monthly of approximately $6, the township amount. This slide, again, shows the dollar allocations. The township only receives 13 cents on the dollar, with the rest going to the education and county as it relates to the small retail commercial property. So this is our median typical standard industrial property. So you can see in the slide what the impact is for the township, the county, education, and the blended taxes. The next slide again shows those allocations in a pie chart format. The township only receives 15 cents of the dollar, with the rest going to the county and the school boards for the for the standard industrial property. So this slide, there was a draft bylaw which included both the operating and capital budget on the township website. And so I'll just speak through the proposed operating budget in the next few slides. So this pie chart, this bar graph explains the share of the property tax for each service. So I did provide a previous slide regarding the various services in the township. And so this slide shows what the property tax is for each service as it relates to the operating budget. And as you can see, public works and fire do make up the higher portions. Total operating expenditures by type is within this slide, and similar to previous years, it is, personnel costs as well as contract services and professional fees that do make up the higher portions of the operating expenditures for the township. It's consistent with previous years and other municipalities as well. So this slide discusses the operating revenues by the various types. So as you can see, property taxes is the highest portion, with user fees and licenses, grants and recoveries, penalties and interest, and payment in lieu of taxes in descending order in the slide. So again, the draft bylaw included both the operating and capital budget, and it's on our website. And the next few slides, we'll just discuss the capital budget and long-term forecast. So Public Works and Fire again make up the higher portions in our capital budget for 2025, similar to the operating budget. The corporate items actually, there are several reserve contributions in the corporate cost center, including our allocation to our asset management discretionary reserve in order to fund our infrastructure replacements. So the next slide just discusses how the capital budget is currently being funded. So discretionary reserves, the highest portion, and that's consistent with previous years. A lot of our capital projects are funded by our asset management discretionary reserve. Any asset replacement projects, for the most part, are funded by this reserve. And then capital tax levy, a significant portion of the capital tax levy is actually contributions to our capital discretionary reserves to fund future projects that we have in our capital budget and forecast. Our restricted reserves, another significant portion. This includes cash in lieu of parkland, development charges, and things such as that. Grants, very comparable to last year as well. We have a couple grants that are funding some of our capital items. And again, the Canada Community Building Fund, this is an annual grant that we obtain, and so we typically fund public works projects under this grant. So this slide just discusses the various projects by department. The public works projects are within this slide. I believe our Director of Public Works, Parks and Facilities is here on the line in case there are any specific questions from the public about any of our projects in Public Works. The next slide discusses specific projects in fire and rescue services. Our fire chief is here on the line as well in case there are any questions about the projects noted for fire and rescue services. Our corporate projects are mostly, as I said before, discretionary reserve contributions in order to fund future projects. It also includes some infrastructure work, some IT work that's within corporate, and also revitalizing the downtowns in Aberfoyle and Morston. A portion of that is grant funded. So the next slide just discusses some of the projects at our municipal office, our Optimus Recreation Center, and our Puss Lynch Community Center. The next slide discusses parks, planning, finance, and bylaw. And I believe we do have departments available here if there's any questions about any of these projects from the public. So the amounts actually on those slides, those are funded through the various funding sources that I previously described. So it could be discretionary reserve funding, it could be grant funding, it could be capital tax levy, but however, it's usually reserve contributions that are funded by the capital tax levy, or it could be restricted reserves as well. So this slide discusses our 10-year capital budget and forecast. So we have been budgeting over 10 years, just to plan accordingly and in accordance with the asset management requirements that municipalities are required to follow. And so, as you can see on this slide, our average expenditures over the 10-year period are approximately $5 million per year. So the next few slides will just discuss our discretionary and restricted reserves and our audited balances in these reserves. So the next slide will discusses how our reserves are changing year over year. We are doing a great job planning for future projects. So as you can see on the slide, we are increasing our reserves little by little each year, and the trend is actually looking really good. So our budgeted contributions to capital and operating discretionary reserves. So the decrease in the operating contribution to discretionary reserves relates to the aggregate levy. So we received previous council direction to ensure that the full aggregate levy is contributed to the aggregate levy discretionary reserve in order to fund public works capital projects. So that this has been a positive change for the township. The majority of the capital contribution to capital discretionary reserves relates to our contribution into our asset management discretionary reserve. And the amounts that we're contributing in there are as per recommendations through our asset management plan. And also looking at our capital budget and forecasts and ensuring that the balance in the reserve is reasonable over the forecast period. This is in accordance with our asset management plan and our budget development and control policy. Council also in previous years established a gravel roads improvement discretionary reserve for the purpose of improving the township's gravel roads. So a portion of that capital contribution is going to that reserve, as well as our administrative studies discretionary reserve to assist with funding some of these projects moving forward. So our engagement opportunities, we've done a lot of engagement related to our 2025 budget process. And again, the survey and Engage Plus Lunch will be available until January 31st at 12 p.m. We've had some advisory committee budget input in preparing the 2025 budget. We've had social media posts and advertisements on Facebook and Twitter. Our website, we've had some advertisements there. Again, our Engage Plus Lunch survey, which I recommend, which I'd like to encourage everyone to respond to. We've had some advertisements on the Wellington Advertiser and Plus Lunch today, our public information meeting today. We've had some media releases as well, and we will have a media release once the budget is approved on February 20th. And once the budget's approved, we'll have a community newsletter issued in August regarding the final budget highlights for the public. So that's the end of my presentation. I'd be happy to answer any questions from the public. And our department heads are here as well to assist.
Thank you, Mrs. Sand.
Thank you.
Is there any attending?
Two attendees.
Okay. You'll be able to find the raise your hand button if you're attending virtually. We can have you ask your question. What are the names? Jay Ganey.
And then we have a member of the media.
Alright. Any questions from council?
Thank you.
Great presentation.
Yeah, great presentation. Thank you, Mary.
Thank you. Thanks for council's direction throughout this budget process. I think it's been great working collaboratively and getting it to a good state.
I believe that Lily left and see her in the hall, so give me another 10 or 15 seconds to see if Mr. Ganning raises his hand or not. All right. I declare this public meeting closed. Council will take no action on this matter tonight. Staff will be reporting at the February 20th, 2025 council meeting with a recommendation for council's consideration. If you wish to receive further notification on this matter, notify by email Mary Hassan at mhassan@pluslunch.ca or by phone 519-763-1226, extension 222. Only those persons who leave their names will provide further notification. If you wish to speak to the matter when it is brought before council in the future, you must register as a delegation with the township clerk prior to the meeting. Great evening, everyone.